I think we are live, Jerry. Happy Monday, man. Happy Monday. What is the 15th of September?
Flying by. It's crazy. Happy Monday to you, Jack, and everybody listening. Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy month. It just seems like it's gone by so fast. I think I said that in August too, but
Yeah.
it's all just flying by. So that's good.
Yeah, some sort of time changes coming up in the near future. You got kids back in school. I keep thinking about once we hit Thanksgiving, man, everything kind of starts to tank off through the holidays. So whatever you got to get between now and Thanksgiving, you better get to it quick. And I think that leads into the topic I want to talk to today. First of all, every Monday, 4 o'clock. I've got to remember to say this. So every Monday, 4 o'clock, you and I jump on, we riff. Every Friday, we try to have a guest.
Yep.
Friday at 11 a.m. You can catch us live at those times. 4 on Monday, 11 a.m. East Coast time. On Fridays, we try to have a guest talking about something with the industry. We've got a guest coming up this week with Michelle with Swept. So we'll be talking about her software package. The week after that, we're going to bring a DSR I bumped into. I knew from long ago, and he kind of reached out because he saw the show and wanted to jump on and just talk about the state of the union as far as distribution goes, because that's changing like crazy. But here's the topic I want to hit today, and I'd love your perspective. I was at my son's football game yesterday, and Buddy walks up, and our kids play together, and we see each other once a week, and we just kind of talk shop. He's in the distribution business, not distribution, more logistics, I guess, not really distribution, but more logistics business. And he goes, "Man, I had a stressful week," and I go, "What occurred?" And it kind of made me start thinking about our business. But he said our head of our IT department walks in, who, by the way, they do logistics, so there's a lot of software packages integrating, talking, all this stuff. He goes, he walks in, he leaves. He just decides he's going to quit.
Wow.
This was a high-powered guy, like a high-positioned guy. And I go, "What was the deal?" And he goes, "Just overworked, overstressed, just fed up with a lot of things." And I go, "What'd you do?" And he goes, "Dude, the credentials, the ID and password for all these platforms, how these platforms talk, how they integrate, maintaining that on a daily basis, keeping the IT infrastructure within the company running." He goes, 3-4 days, I was panicking. Luckily, they got him back. And they'll probably have to pay him a little extra money and probably take a little stress load off of him. But I was asking him, I go, "What you had to have some kind of fallback plan?" This guy left. He goes, "No, we didn't." He goes, "Now we will, but now we've got to go about it really politically, how we nicely ask for this information." And I thought it was interesting because I was wondering, for contract cleaner companies, both big, small, medium, whatever it may be, but if someone came in there into the company, or let's just say you took off for a week, 2 weeks, 30 days. I call it the 30-day test. But could you take off for 30 days, and would the company be okay? Would it keep going upwards, or at least remain flat, or would it start to kind of crumble a little bit, or would it just tank? That's the question I have. And I don't know if you've ever went through a stress test with your company, but I started thinking about it. I go, "Man, that's like we talked about with Chick-fil-A. If that guy wanted an extra Chick-fil-A store, he had to kind of prove he'd disappear for a little bit. But could you disappear? That's the question to the audience. Could you disappear for 30 days in your company, still maintain, where it is, what it's doing?"
Well, I mean, let's face it, Jack. 30 days. Could you disappear for a week for vacation with your family?
Yeah.
And I think what happens, not just in the janitorial world, but in all small businesses, I think what happens is people. I think everything is dependent a lot on the owner, and it's sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. But as the organization grows, there's more and more pressure, or more and more responsibility on that person. And what happens is they store those policies, procedures, all that in their head. They know how things go, and everybody depends on them to answer almost every question in the organization. And they decide they want to go on vacation. Well, it's not vacation. It's they're answering the phone, they're on phone calls, they're talking to customers, because behind the scenes, there's just nothing in place to support the organization. And they've not given or permitted people to take authority over certain areas or any areas and hold them accountable to that. So I think it falls back to, a couple months ago, we talked about what are the things you're putting in place, or where have you put procedures or policies in place. And keep in mind, procedures are operational, policies are HR. And, where are those repeatable processes that can run your company and not be solely dependent on you? Um, for me, a great example is early on in our business. We're at $1.5 million, dollars, and it was one of the two of us that were running the company that had to answer almost every question for everybody and during the day. And I was like, okay, then we go home at night and our phone rang off the hook because one of the two of us had to answer the question. And that's just not sustainable,
Yeah.
especially, when the most important thing in most business people's mind is they're doing it so they can take care of their family. And if you're trying to prioritize family and the business just runs you over, well, you kind of defeated the purpose. And so that's just, a lot of people do that. So yeah, I mean, you've got to put things in place um, that can help the business move forward. And so I could go on, this, I could go on for an hour on this topic and not even stop talking. So I won't, but you can, pose any question on that. Cause for me, it's a passion to be able to help business owners get from point A to point B by putting in policies and procedures that help, especially repeatable procedures.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. You go to McDonald's, you can go to McDonald's in Texas and McDonald's in Virginia. They do the French fries 99% of the time the same way.
Not the same way. Yeah,
Because
exactly the same
that's a
way.
policy, right? And that's how you cook. You don't, fry guy number 2 doesn't show up in Texas and go, I think I want to do French fries this way. They're like, well, you could go somewhere else because that doesn't work here.
Yeah. No, I thought it was just an interesting question. And I think to your point too, there was a quote I ran across because I was doing a little post on this in the community. I put a poll question up of 30-day, I thought 30-day challenge, would it stumble without me? Major disruptions would occur. It would survive but struggle in key areas, or would it run well with minor hiccups or business as usual? You want to be that business as usual. But the quote I ran across as I was doing some research on that was like, can you leave your company for an X amount of time? If not, and it still operates fully, if not, do you really own the company? Do you
Yeah.
really own the company? Or does the company
Somebody
own?
own, yeah. I was going to say, you're going to say it. Does the company own you? Somebody owns something,
Yeah.
and that's not, I think that's the problems with our entrepreneur spirit sometimes, that outruns reality.
Yeah.
And we've really got to take a step back and go, okay, this is how we make this thing move forward and grow, and that's building a strong foundation on repeatable processes. And like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, giving authority and accountability to someone. Authority means they don't need you to make the decision. They can make it. You've given them the authority to make the decision. But in the background, you've said, here are the ways I'd like to see us handle these things.
Yeah.
But because we hired you based on the culture and all the things we trust about you, we're going to leave it to you to express it in the right way under the parameters of the company. And then the second part of that is the accountability of it, and hold people accountable to that. Hey, once a week meetings, were you able to do this? Were you able to do this? How did this go? What does this look like? I knew more about my company at 6 million doing a weekly meeting with my leadership team than I probably did at 1.5 million, because I was in the trenches so much. I wasn't always 100% sure where we were,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And that was another thing, like, that was doing the research too, just like if you go to a meeting and you really bring no value, like you weren't needed there, not value, but you were not needed there, that should be a good sign that
a great sign. Yeah.
the organization is kind of running on its own. So
Mm.
I kind of like that. The other thing that the stress test of this 30-day test, you're never going to really do the 30-day test, but you may want to. I think that's an ultimate goal that I want to get to if I had my own company like that. But here's one of the takeaways too is where do I start with my SOPs? People are like, well, let's start here, and you're guessing, but it'd be fun. Every time you take a vacation, you commit that we're going to see what's going to show fractures or show stress signs, and leave for 3 days. Let's see what comes up, and boom, guess what? Those are your first SOPs. Do it again. You maybe say, I'm gonna unplug myself. I'll be in the office, but I'm unplugging myself for a full 3 days. I'm working on leadership things. I'm meeting with clients. I'm meeting with customers, whatever it may be. But let's see what starts to kind of show stress factors. And at that point, there's your second round of SOPs. And Again, I think the other thing is like, I think a lot of owners probably think that they have to write all the SOPs. And quite honestly, who's that person going to be accountable for? And it can't be more than two people. But if there's one person accountable for the AP department, there's one person accountable for the onboarding, maybe it's you, maybe you're doing all both of them. But as you start to assign those accountabilities within the accountability chart, not the org chart, but the accountability chart, have them make that first pass. And then this exchange starts to going on. So I would challenge every owner out there that's listening to this is that's a worthwhile project. Just maybe not 30 days, but take 3 days and just see what starts to fracture and put some SOPs. I think of our guy in Denver that kind of wouldn't let go of billing. He started letting go of billing, and he freed up 3 or 4 hours a week of time. That's 12 hours a month. That's a half a day a month he's picking up of doing something else. How many times can you duplicate that and multiply that?
Well, the key is as owners to free up as much time as possible to lead the company.
Yeah.
And so many people, there's that term out there, I'm leading from behind, or I'm leading within, and those are all great concepts and ideas, but you don't want to be leading from underneath the weight of it all, because then you're not, it's not good leadership. So one of the things we talked about a couple months ago on the show, and I would challenge somebody to do that. Even Chat GTP now has, it's not the free level, it's the first level, entry level. You can literally just take your phone, and as you're doing a policy or a procedure, you can talk into Chat GTP and just say, here are the steps to, I'm stripping and waxing the floor, here are the steps. And at the end, just walk through the steps, pause it every time, or just walk through the steps and say, please put this into a PDF format as an instructional, as an operational process for how we do floors at said company.
Yeah.
And you could do that all the way through. We got to be able to use technology, where it benefits us the most. And even just taking voice memos when you're doing stuff, just pick those top 3 things and start getting it down and getting it in process. And we always talk about it with our customers, Jack, is get the playbook, right? Get the playbook for how your organization runs, and go from there. And so every organization's different, but every organization should have its own playbook. We watched the Giants and the Cowboys go at it yesterday, and in the fourth quarter, between them, I think they scored almost 35, 40 points. It was 35 points. It was crazy. But both those teams came with a particular idea and a playbook for the game. And as they got going in the game, they made adjustments to the playbook they brought with them.
Yep.
And those, you can rest assured, those adjustments were made, and they are being documented today, so that next time they play each other, they're going to have that information. And the same is true about your business. You might have a basic playbook, but you might be making changes as you go, and they're interjecting those. So I always say, your company policy and procedures can be fluid, at least to a certain point, to be able to make adjustments as you grow the company. And always start with your mindset of, if I'm under $1 million, go ahead and prepare yourself as if you're a $5 million company. Prepare your procedures and policies that way. And if you're 5 million or whatever, prepares a 10 or 20 million. That way you can grow into that stuff, and you don't have as much pain to work on it on an ongoing basis. So, but it is a fluid document.
No. Now I took that premise on that 30-day test, and I threw it through a course. I put a course together on our mentorship program. So we have, for those listening, we have an online mentorship course as well that supports our live session. So you can either go full board with the live and the live and the online version, or on the online version. But here's 3 questions I came back with on scalability. What parts of your business, this is a good question, what parts of your business would collapse tomorrow if you weren't there to direct them? That's like a good thought. And I think most true owners would have a good feel of what would probably break down, because they're probably answering those questions 15 times a day, but they might be surprised. So I think that's one question. Second question is, what daily task could you delegate to free up time for a higher level leadership? Again, free up. And I think a lot of, I'm assuming, because I think I would be guilty of this, is that I think some owners have guilt that if they're not doing what they've always done,
Yeah.
they're not contributing, right?
Right. Right. That contribution has got to come at a different level, though.
Yeah.
You listen. I've told you about this, but the floor care guys in our team, I teach them how we're going to do the floors, and they'd be like, "Why don't you come with us and do floors?" I'm like, "Because I need to be doing this to be able to get you more floors to be able to do." And sometimes, owners get blinders on, like, "Yeah, this will be awesome. Let's go out and do it," and they just wasted 2 or 3 hours on something that they've hired people to do
Yep.
and missed the mark. So, yeah, this is a very I think it's an extremely common thing in companies that are at least under a 5 million. We have some friends that run a local business here, and they were at 4.5, 5 million, and we sat down with them. They didn't even have a job description ready, and I
Mhm.
was like, wow. And it's just like great product and extremely energized,
Yep.
but exhausted thoroughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we wanted to take away that third thing, and we just helped them with getting their stuff organized. And listen, if you're listening to the show today and you need that, just email Jack and I. Is it Jack and me and Jack? I don't know, whatever it is, but yeah, it's
Us.
us. Email us and let us help you. We'll, even if it's a half day workshop with your team, we need to do something over Zoom with you, or if you want us to come on site and spend a day with you, we can do that for a very, very, like, it's not super expensive to do that. It's a little bit of our time and obviously some travel, but we can help you help yourself. And here's what I always tell people, Jack, and I knew you do the same thing. Hey, listen, blame it on us. Let's put all these
Yeah.
policies and
Yeah.
procedures and just blame it on us. Just say, hey, these guys, I hired them to help us get this thing a little more organized, so I have more time to help grow the business, and we'll take it. I'll help your leadership team work through that. And for your company to grow, things have to change. Um, some people get comfortable; they're fine at $1 million, and that's okay. But if you're a $1 million company and you want to be a $5 million company, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting
Yeah.
different results. You've got to really work hard on that. So
Agreed.
yeah, this is like, definitely we can help with that. So I just created a whole workshop for us, Jack, right here on the
Yeah,
spot.
there you go, right there. Here was the third one I liked a lot. Business value grows when it's not tied to you. So the
Yeah,
business value grows. Like investors, I think we talked about this before. Investors are looking for those owners, those
yeah,
executives that aren't on the front line. That if they decide to leave after a purchase acquisition, which often happens, is that they don't lose business. And here was the discussion question on this one. If you wanted to sell your company in 3 years, put yourself in the buyer's perspective. You're going to switch roles. As a buyer, what would you see as red flags for your current operations? And just that's it.
yeah.
You're
Great.
stepping outside of your organization and you're looking at it and saying, if I was going to buy this company, where would be the red flags, knowing everything I know? Because they're going to find it out eventually. It's just when.
Yeah. Listen, that's a great question to ask. When I sold my business, my plan was to stay there a year and just kind of help in the transition. Super, super great guys, amazing guys. And I wanted to, do my best to help them. I had another opportunity come along, but one of the things I was most worried about is, how is this thing going to operate when my hands are off of it to this extent where we've sold it? And I'm in the office just saying, supporting, kind of guiding people where to go and no longer talk to me. And to be honest with you, uh, the first couple of weeks, it was a little bit odd because there was decisions being made, very healthy, very good decisions for the organization, but they weren't coming from me.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice. It was a very much my body, everything was just like, whew, this is crazy. But if you are an owner and the less questions, that's a great way to look at it, Jack. The less questions and problems you have to solve, probably the better off your resale or your sale value will go up. Because when you go to sell a company, what are the chargebacks or the putbacks, the things that are in the company that are valuing the owner, and I've never thought about it, what decisions are being made by the owner that would prevent that company from being valuable.
Yeah.
And I think we did a really good job of making sure that um, we had all the decisions being made at a lower level, and we were just kind of guiding the ship, So
Well,
you know what? The thing that I think you said this a couple weeks ago. The thing I like is what you know how these big cruise ships, they go in and out of ports. Well, the captains, they can maneuver that ship all day long anywhere pretty much, but when they come to a port they're unfamiliar with, they bring in a pilot, right, to guide the boat because they know it. The same is true, for our businesses. Is kind of like what when we're trying to get this boat somewhere, this company somewhere, who do we call on to help us with that and put that into some kind of perspective? And that's people like ourselves or people that have done it before, but people that can help you know the things that you need to know and not make the mistakes that they've probably made. I'm sure those pilots have put a boat or two, grounded or hit an edge or something that they aren't super proud of, but they pretty much know that port that they pilot. So
yeah. And as I was reading through this and thinking through this, I was thinking, I'm always jealous of owners. They can you can expense things. You go on vacation, as long as you're doing business, you can expense things. Again, you got to spend money, but guess what? Rather than paying, check your tax account and all that stuff. But rather than paying taxes on it, you're paying the government. You're expensing that or writing some of that off. But maybe that's a good reason to take 15 little 3-day a week or 3-day kind of sabbaticals, and you're calling stress test of the company that I'm taking out. I'm going away to see what breaks. It's a work-related trip. Boom.
Yeah, and when you do it, unplug, but know this. Give your team some parameters to say, okay, we don't want the wheels falling off this thing, so here's where I want you to call me. Mostly customer related or high-ranking employees that get frustrated or something. Let's have a phone call. Don't just totally abandon everything, but you want to kind of get a feel for it. But you need to clearly communicate when you're going to want them to call you if something really does go sideways, because you don't want your business to crumble, out off of one bad decision while you're on a 3-day,
Yeah, no kidding. So, all right. Well,
yeah, it can be done well. So that's for sure.
Well,
So
that was the topic for today. So I think that was, I think there's something there. So stress test, 30 days, 3 days, whatever you think. I think it's a good mental exercise to see what would break down or what you think would break down, what actually would break down. Again, who owns the company? You or the company own you? I think that's what you got to think as well. And no, I think good conversation. So we got to say this too. I should say this at the very front because people fall off toward the end, but we need to start saying like and subscribe. We've got, we're getting more subscribers now, which is great, but we still need a lot more. But I think this social experiment we're doing right now is starting to pay off, and we're getting some people reaching out to us. So we love that. So keep it up.
Yeah. And, share with your friends the Chasing Dirt Show. It's very organic. We don't have radio voices. We're not, we probably should tell you who we are right off the beginning more, but, Chasing Dirt Show, spread the word. And if we can help you in any way, Jerry at GetRoute.com or Jack at GetRoute, or you can, reach out to us on LinkedIn. But we'd love to help you guys out, guys and gals out any way you can. And listen, yes, we are in the commercial cleaning world, but if there's a small business out there that needs help and we can help them in some way, shape, or form, especially on this topic, it's a universal topic, and we'll be glad to help and any way that we can. So it's much of a privilege and an honor to be able to serve people by doing this. So we're very grateful and thankful to be able to do it. So
cool. Love it. Good stuff. Well, I guess we'll go back on Friday live, and you and I will take some calls this week with some clients. So look forward to that.
Absolutely.
So thanks for the time.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.